everyone who have joined this webinar organized by KCC Institute of Legal and Higher Education. In this webinar, we are going to discuss about the most powerful entity of democracy, that is media. No doubt, every profession has its share of responsibility towards society, but when we talk about media, its role is much more enormous. This is so because media not only deliver the information, it also influences the thoughts of masses. And when we talk about media, the print media is the most concrete and reliable source of reliable source in terms of information. In this is the reason many people are attracted toward this field. But still, there are various queries regarding the career in print media, especially among the student of journalism. And today's webinar will focus on clearing those queries and doubts. So to clearly understand the domain of career in print media, today we have with us Shri PradIp Bagchi, who is Senior Editor in Times of India. Now, I would like to request our Director, Ma'am, Dr. Bhavna Agarwal, to please welcome and introduce our guest of honor.
Thank you, Pratik. Good morning, everyone. I extend warm welcome to all of you in this webinar, Careers in Print Media, Versatility is the Key. First of all, on behalf of KCC Institutes, extend a cordial welcome to Mr. PradIp Bagchi, Senior Editor, Times of India, for his gracious presence with us. Mr. Bagchi is currently Senior Editor with the Times of India, New Delhi. He has experience of various media platforms in his career spanning over 30 years. He joined United News of India in 1990. During his fine profession journey, he covered a wide range of issues from politics and defense to natural disaster and cricket in sports. He shifted a broadcast journalism in 2003 and was part of the senior editorial team for launch of Headlines Today, now called India Today, and also Newsacts in 2008. He was also in a senior editorial position in CNN IBN. He was also on the panel of All India Radio's English newscasters during 1996-2003. Mr. Bagchi has a vast experience in teaching, training aspiring media professionals for over 22 years. He has been a visiting faculty to prestigious media institutes, including Indian Institute of Mass Communication, TV Today Media Institute, and many more. Sir, I'm extremely thankful as you kindly consented to share your knowledge and experience on this topic out of your extremely busy schedule, but I personally feel that this lecture will highlight the various aspects of print media. So now I request you to take over.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhavnaji. Thank you for your kind words. And it's a pleasure. And I thank you personally also for giving me this opportunity to interact with the students, which is always a pleasure for me. Exchange of ideas with students is always has always taken me forward. And when they ask questions, and you also then get to know a lot many things. So anyway, without wasting much time, I will straight away get into the brass tacks. So I've got 1 hour, so to cover a huge area actually. So I've tried to squeeze in as much as I could, so that I can cover. So basically, that 1 hour that I've got for the lecture, and I think I've got another half an hour for the question answer session. I'm ready. I can extend. I mean, if you have time, I'm flexible. So it's up to you. So please let me know. Prompt me that when I have to stop. So then I will. And so basically, I have divided my today's lecture into 3 parts. Since the topic is career in print and versatility is the key. So when you talk about career in print, like print is the oldest medium, as we all know, and it started with mass communication started with print actually, when Gutenberg came up with the printing press. So then, of course, much later, radio came, then television came, and today, of course, we have got the digital platforms, n number of digital platforms. So ever since print came, the media landscape has completely changed, right? And now with the digital platform, in the last few years, we find a huge change in the media landscape. So I have divided my lecture into 3 parts. First part is, like when you talk about a career in print, you have to also think about the media landscape today. Like print as a media platform cannot be in isolation. Like before the lecture, I was talking to students and they told me that you get to learn everything here, right? It's a bachelor course in journalism. Journalism includes all the platforms, whether it's print or TV or radio or whatever. So the question is that you cannot see print in isolation. And today, this is the case all the more. So what happens is, so you have to think about the changing face of the media, which media space you are working in. So I have divided my lectures into three parts. One is the changing face of media. I'll talk about that. If you have any questions, please ask me there and there. Then I will talk about the print, what print is doing in this changing landscape. And it's not a change, I still call it a changing landscape because it is changing every day. It is changing every moment, right? So it's a very dynamic thing. It's not that it's a constant thing, this landscape. It's constantly changing, right? So Orkut was there, then Facebook came, then WhatsApp came, social media, things, the proliferation of the platforms. So anyway, so then I'll talk about the second part will be about the innovations in print. What print has to do, because you must learn this. Unless you learn this, what innovations are required, what print is doing, you will not be able to succeed in the print platform. And the third part is I will talk about the third part of the lecture, the versatility factor. Like you have to be a master of all. You have to be a couple there. Being a Sachin Tendulkar will not do. So you have to be an all-rounder, right? So straight away, let's talk about the changing face of the media. The first thing that if you see in today's media scenario, first is how print is also changing because of that. And you must know this. And I will give you examples how print is changing. First is today's media is very interactive. Right? It's an interactive media, like because of the digital platform. And all these changing phases that I'm talking about, the changes that have come about, more of the changes is because of the digital platform. When TV came, of course, it changed. It changed the way print used to write stories. Like 30 years back when I joined the profession, there's a certain way we used to write stories. Now, after that, I was in a wire service. Print-based, there are three things. One is the newspaper. Bulk, by majority is newspapers. By print, what comes to our mind is the newspapers. Next to the wire services, right? Like UNI, PTI, Reuters, AP, and all that. And the third is the magazines, the periodicals, as we call them, magazines, which can be weekly, which can be monthly, which can be fortnightly, whatever it is. So by and large, of course, I will concentrate on the newspaper part of it, because that's by print, what do you mean? And that is the largest employer in print. If you talk about a career in print, what comes to your mind is the newspapers. Magazines are that employ far less. And wire services also is there, but it's again, in terms of employment, it is no match to print because there are n number of newspapers, both at the national level and at the regional level, right? So things change. When TV came, wire services, newspapers, they changed the way they wrote stories. Because before that, wire services were the 24/7 media. Now television, what happened? But wire services are not accessible to people. Their subscribers are the newspapers and television channels and all that. So you don't, as an individual, don't get the UNI PTI stories, right? So the UNI PTI stories, what you get is which are published in the newspapers. So wire services do not have any direct contact with the readers. Now when television came with 24/7 television channels, it changed the way newspapers wrote stories. The storytelling completely changed, right? Because I know that tomorrow morning when my newspaper comes out, people already know that information because they have seen the television channel the previous night, right? So that is one change. The next change came was this digital platform. And of course, along with the digital platform, that includes the social media platforms, right? So the first is digital platform made it very interactive. But today's people are by nature interactive. They want to interact. So the digital platform, we have the story. So you have a comments section, right? So people can comment. Then there is a comment thread. So I can give my views because people like to give their views on any subject, right? So print has a challenge there. So I will talk about it when I talk about innovations in the second part of the lecture, what print is doing to do this. So I'm just taking you through the pointers of the changing face of the media. Second is, huge thing is the user-generated content. With the digital platform, what has come is user-generated, social media. You generate your content. Like 10 years, when social media platforms are not there, or the digital platform was not there, people were just consumers of information, of news, right? Today, they are not only consumers of information, but they are also producers of information. I'm producing information that says I'm content creator. I'm not only content consumer, I'm also a creator of content at the individual level. But that has its own challenges. आज के अखबार में भी आप देखोगे आया है सुप्रीम कोर्ट का कि भाई the government has said how digital media needs regulation because there is no regulation at all in digital media, right? So that's a different topic altogether, though. So user-generated content. The print has with the user-generated content. What happened is it led also to a lot of fake news, spread of fake news. Because whatever I write it, and it gets into my Facebook post or my Twitter post or my Instagram account, and it is in mass circulation, right? So what is happening is it is also leading to fake news. There print comes in. I will come to that later when we talk about innovation, the second part of the content of the lecture. The third trend is customized content. You have to, today what has happened is you have to customize your content for the reader. Like when print initially we used to customize content in the sense of, say, magazine nikal rahi hai, so I bring out a magazine only for auto. So only people who are interested in auto sector, cars and scooters and bikes, they will read that magazine. So it is customized. It is customized for people. But today, customization is of a different kind. Of course, in the digital platform, customization comes down to the individual level. So customized content is another trend in today's media. Now, print is also trying to get into that, to cater to that. Okay, so this is the third point. With the social media, what has happened is 3 V's. The velocity, volume, and variety of content. There's a huge volume of content. There is a huge variety of content. And there's a huge velocity of that content. आप देखोगे कि one particular WhatsApp forward, about a WhatsApp joke that you get on your mobile phone from Bombay, within 5 minutes you get it from Chennai. And another time, 5 minutes later, you get it from somewhere in Northeast. That means it has circulated so fast, right? So the velocity of content is very. एक Twitter में निकलता है viral, कहते हैं ना viral videos, viral हो जाता है. It's very, very fast. So what print is doing for all this? So if you want to have a career in print media, you have to keep all this in mind, and you have to cater to these needs as well. And that's what we are trying to do. Okay. So I will talk about it again in the innovation part. That is the role of influencers. Influencers meaning, आप देखोगे कि influencers जो लिखते हैं, people believe it, right? अपने Twitter पे किसने लिख दिया, तो influencers. So people trust them. So what was happening was, it was journalistic platforms. People did not bother whether the news, the information is correct or not. If it is coming from some celebrity, it must be correct. That was the idea, right? So what is journalism after all? Journalism is not we don't only disseminate information. Journalism is dissemination of authenticated information. It's not only information, it is authenticated information. That is, मैं जो दे रहा हूँ information public platform में, this is correct information. This is sourced. That's why sources are important. That's why attribution is important. आप देखोगे any news story will have attribution, will have sources, official said, या Prime Minister's office said, या so and so said, या eyewitness said, whoever it is. So you'll have attribution. मैं ऐसे नहीं बोल दिया, हवा में नहीं बोल दिया, मैंने लिख दिया, right? So that is very, very important. So with this role of influencers, the role of media journalistic organizations was getting diluted. Right? People believe whatever, suppose some celebrity writes something, some Bollywood actress or whoever it is, some politician, some MP, whoever he writes something, people believe it because it could be wrong. It has happened, like many cases internationally. It has happened. Some time back, French President Macron, he wrote that 80% of Earth's oxygen comes from Amazon forests. Now that was wrong. But since he tweeted, and it was retweeted by many others, including our own Bollywood actor, I'm forgetting the name. Anyway, Arjun Kapoor's girlfriend now, whoever it is, I'm forgetting the name. Anyway, so people believed it, but that turned out to be wrong. So that is one. So print has to get, so for it, so that's why when you're thinking of a career in print, you have to basically think about all this which is happening. So you are prepared for it. The print expects you to take into account all this. Then what has come is the direct messaging. This people like politicians, like Prime Minister and everybody today, they are through Twitter, they are directly messaging to the people. So they don't need any media organization. Like suppose there's a Twitter account, so the PM tweets, so his billions of subscribers, followers get it. So it doesn't need a newspaper or a television channel to disseminate that information. The other part is, what has happened is, that is why print is still is important if you see TV also. Another trend that we see is the opinionated media. Media has become very opinionated. Previously, what happened was, news was separate, views was separate. So you have an edit page where the views are there, and news is separate, right? Today, there is a mix of news and views. It's very difficult to figure out the bias. That's another challenge. And that is where print is still on a far better footing than other channels. Because other channels is mostly, if you see primetime shows, when there are talk shows with 7 people, 8 people, so it's only views, right? There's no news there. So they rely more on views, even television channels. So print, paper, but yes, we try to give views, but we also have to mix news with views because we can't help it. Because in a newspaper, what happens is it comes out the next day. So today, the things have happened. People get to know through television channels, through Twitter, through social media, whatever. So tomorrow morning, why should they read the newspapers? So I have to give something extra. Only information will not do. So I have to add a perspective to it. So we give news. Today, newspapers have started giving news with perspective. So when we give perspective, we try to give both sides. That should be the motto, actually. That's a very that's another trend where print has to reinvent the blurring of news and views. Then, of course, is the impact of mobile phone. Today, every news is on the mobile phone, right? So people, that's why I tell my students, they think that in the mobile phone, if you are subscribing to NDTV or whatever, some app, you get the information. You don't read it. You don't go beyond that. The question is not about information. As I said, for a perspective, to develop a perspective of that news, you have to read the newspaper. So print has to get in there. That, we'll give you news with a certain perspective, with a broader perspective. It's not about only information. Then, so these are the normal trends that we're talking about. Then I'll talk about briefly the impact of COVID before we get to what print is doing, the innovation, the second part of the lecture, right? So what happened in the COVID, the problem became because digital challenge was already there for the print. So in COVID, what happened was it created further challenge for the print. Newspapers छप तो रही थी, लेकिन distribution was a problem during lockdown because the newspaper vendors were not there. So we worked, we produced the newspapers, But at many places, including my own society, the newspapers were not distributed at all because the vendors were not there. They were scared. So what happened? During the lockdown, people shifted to the digital platform. So they shifted to the digital platform from the physical newspaper for the stories, for news. Right? So that became the focus completely shifted. For the newspaper, again, the challenge was because the businesses suffered, we had less of ads. Since we had less of ads, so we had less number of pages. So we had less number of pages, it meant less content. And everything was shut. So even your content was less. So if you see during the peak of lockdown, the content was only COVID, only COVID, because there was no other content. Businesses, offices were shut. Right? Then the other challenge was work from home. When you're talking about this is slight digression from career in print, but I'm saying is when you're thinking of a career in print, so you have to be prepared for these kind of situations as well. So nobody was prepared for it because in a journalistic organization, we had never seen work from home. Work from home, we see from in IT industry. We have heard about it. It's not a new term as such, but IT industry and some other industries. But journalism is all about exchange of ideas. The editors will meet the reporters. There will be ideation of stories. There will be mapping, story mapping होगा. किस story को कैसे approach करेंगे? How many stories can be done based on this? So it's a very interactive thing. So for us, it was a huge challenge. The idea exchange became very limited. Like on the MS Teams, how much can you discuss? So on the virtual platform, your discussions are very limited to the specific topics. So you don't go beyond that. So in the office, what happens in the edit meetings, we discuss a lot of things, related topics. Here in the virtual meetings, it's not possible. Right? Second, what happened was, for the juniors particularly, it was a loss in the sense peer learning was less. At office, when you're in office, if you're talking to your boss about a certain story, in the process, you get to learn a lot more. In the office, when you interact with people, with your other colleagues, you learn more. But when you're on your own, alone, your peer learning is very limited. You don't learn from others. You don't learn from your fellow reporters or from your seniors or whoever. So the learning for the juniors, it has been a handicap. But you have to manage it on your own. So investigative reporting, for example, was badly hit because all the offices and all that were closed. The other thing hit was sports reporting, entertainment reporting. So you have to find out ways how to do it. Suppose you're a sports reporter and there is no sports page. Why? Because nothing is happening. Sports, all the cricket had stopped, all football had stopped. Now it has started last 1 month or so. But if you see April, May, and June, so as a reporter, you have to think, you have to innovate. What do I do? You have to justify, you have to write a story. You have to give a story, 1 story, 2 stories a day to justify your salary. So what do? Nothing is happening. So then you have to innovate. So some of our reporters, they went back to past. Somebody said, all-time cricket 11 India ka kya? And they talked to some people. Okay, what does Gavaskar think about the all-time cricket 11 of India? What does Kapil Dev think? So there was a story on that. Or there was a story on maybe you take views on who is the greatest of all footballers, Pele or Maradona. Or current footballers, who is the greatest? Ronaldo or Messi. So you have to think because people are doing these kind of stories. People are doing anecdotal stories. Right? So it led to a lot of imagination also on the part of the reporters. You had to do it because there was no other way. So now I will talk about the innovations. The innovations that have been done by print. So you have to see as an organization innovates. So as a reporter or as an editor, whatever you are. So you can be choosing a job of a reporter. You can be choosing the job of a desk person. I mean, you are on the editorial side, right? You are editing the stories. Either way, when the organization is innovating, you also have to innovate. You're part of that innovation. You're part of that organizational innovation, and you have to innovate at your own level, which I will talk about in the third part. That versatility is the key. That is innovation at your own level. So what has been the innovations in print? Print India. So print, as I said, interactive media, today's media is so interactive. So print has to constantly innovate to engage with the reader, right? Now print ke liye bada challenge hai. It's a huge challenge. How do you engage? How do you be interactive? Say, a TV can be interactive. I can just get in touch with the viewer on the phone line or on OB, and I can interact. The anchor can interact, right? Same happens in radio. I can do that. I can do that in digital platform, of course. I mean, there's a comment column. So I'm constantly interacting with the reader. But in the print, in the newspaper, how do you interact with the reader? How to make it interactive? So we devised many ways. If you see Times of India, the first paper which started doing it, and I think is the only paper even till now doing it, our byline is the email ID of the reporter. Like suppose tomorrow I write a story in Times of India, it will be pradip.bagchi@timesgroup.com. It will not go as by Pradeep Bagchi. Previously, that was the case. It started 2013, actually, we started this. Before that, the byline would be Pradeep Bagchi. But 2013, 7 years back, we started this. Because we realized, now what was the motive? The motive was to make the reader, to enable the reader to interact with the reporter if he or she needed. Suppose I have written a story, you agree with it, you like it, or maybe you don't like it. Maybe you think that information is wrong. You are frustrated because you are unable. In the digital platform, you will straight away write in the comments column that your information is wrong or this is wrong, whatever, right? But in the print newspaper, what do you do? So here, since the email ID is there, you can communicate with the reporter directly. Okay, listen to your story, this information is wrong, whatever it is, right? So that is one innovation we did to engage. Now, other things I will talk about, because engagement, how you engage with the reader. Other examples I'll give about. I'll give a little later. The other thing that is important is what print now. Now, why should you think of a career in print? Now, people ask this question many times. Will print be dead? Will newspapers be dead? Right. Now, if you ask me, I think first of all, India में तो mindset ऐसा है कि अखबार का कि लोग पढ़ते हैं, इससे नशा. News. We are a very news crazy country, so that is there. Second, because of the digital platform, a time will come. This proliferation of fake news. A time will come when people will get fed up and come back to print. Why? For reliability, for authentic information. आज भी देखिए जो अखबार में आई है, जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट को गवर्नमेंट ने बोला है कि there are regulations for print and TV, but there's no unregulated medium is the digital platform. So you have to think about that. That means that is more dangerous. Print also has certain regulations. We have certain regulations in mind. अब देखो कि फेक न्यूज अखबार में उतना कभी fakes, but a wrong information by mistake and fake news is a difference. Fake news means deliberately I am putting it, which happens only in the digital platform, 99%. Right? Print में आप नहीं देखोगे, अखबार में कभी-कभी गलत information हो सकती है, but it may not be deliberate. It is not that we have to spread fake news, right? So print has to capitalize on his reputation of reliability. And during COVID, if you see, print got its importance, because what happened was a lot of information relating to COVID, fake information, wrong information was getting circulated in the digital platform, like this WhatsApp or whatever, right? If you remember, this term came to be known as infodemic. Epidemic के साथ, pandemic के साथ infodemic, wrong information like a pandemic being spread all across by the digital platforms. So infodemic as a term became very famous. It was a buzzword during the lockdown period. So what happened? People looked for print newspapers for correct information, right? So in a fake news, in a post-truth society, we are in a post-truth society. So truth is not that important. So their newspapers have their importance, right? The other part of the newspapers is, आप देखोगे, newspapers का sections अलग-अलग होते हैं, entertainment and all that. But newspapers are known more for serious content. It is not for, it is not a times of, in the times of the trivial, but the trivial matters, sensational चीजें ज़्यादा occupy करती है space in digital platform and even now in TV these days. Newspapers को उतना नहीं है. So they have to innovate. They have to make sure that they stick to this. आप देखोगे कि टेलीविजन चैनल में जितना सुशांत सिंह राजपूत का प्राइम टाइम डिबेट चला, न्यूज़पेपर्स में कभी वो फ्रंट पेज में वैसा नहीं था कि डेज आफ्टर डेज फ्रंट पेज में सिर्फ सुशांत सिंह राजपूत ही है. खबर है, छोटी सी खबर कहीं अंदर में इनसाइड. But television channels, there are some channels which went on for days as prime time news. So newspaper have that advantage. The other thing is innovation में आपको करनी पड़ेगी, वो है cross media presentation of news. This has been, I've been talking about this not today, for 20 years back. A time will come when newspapers will start quoting one another so that the reader is not denied from good content, right? I call it cross media presentation of news. Like suppose Telegraph, and it happens sometimes, like it happens sometimes in the sense, suppose Telegraph has published a good exclusive interview of somebody, I don't have it, so I quote Telegraph and publish it. So Telegraph also gets publicity, so they will not object. And my reader, who is not reading Telegraph, is reading Times of India, will also get it, right? So that is another level of innovation. It has already started. Cross-media presentation of news has already started, but it will get more and more, it will become more and more prevalent in the day, I think in the years to come, right? Other most important which we are doing is in terms of innovation is that integration with the digital platform. And from here, I will talk about the last segment when I talk about that versatility is the key. So I will talk about how innovations are required at your personal level. This is what innovations are being done by individual organizations, newspapers, but innovations are also required at your personal level. So integration with the digital platforms. Now, newspapers are constantly doing it. At least we have started doing it very consciously. Not only digital platforms, but also with social media. So what happens is, so we have our, and today if you see every newspaper has its digital wing. Like there is a timesofindia.com, there's an e-paper, right? Electronic paper. So HT has its own e-paper. You have to have that. Because what happens is, people are not going to wait in this 24/7 news scenario. People are not going to wait till the next day. So suppose I want to read. So how do you make Times of India newspaper 24/7? Through the digital platform, by writing on the digital platform. So that's why we have the e-paper, we have the websites, which constantly is updating news, right? Then we're constantly integrating with the social media platforms. Because we know that for people, the social media space is very dear. My Facebook page, my Twitter is very dear to me. So I'm trying to make inroads into that. So I'll try to put my stories into that. So our reporters are constantly asked that they have to do it. And let me tell you, in fact, their incentives are also based on this. They have to put their stories on the social media platforms. They have to tweet, they have to put it on WhatsApp, they have to put it on Facebook, whatever. So days are ahead when more and more platforms will be added, of course, but they have to tweet their stories. Because Twitter is so that a larger number of people who have who have not got the access to your newspaper, but still get the story of your newspaper. So if your newspaper branding is there constant, the Times of India branding is there constant, right? I'll give you some examples. One byline example I gave. The other example was how another thing is that media trend is to make today's people want that news stories should be visually attractive. So how do you make yourself visually attractive? Right. So we started in Times of India a long time back. So I've been here for the last 7 years, but it started a long time back. They think really, really ahead. So if you see Times of India as a newspaper carries much more graphics, a lot of color combinations. Story is there, but the graphics is also there. The illustrations. A crime story is there. How the crime happened? We don't have the pictures, of course, how the crime happened, but we know how the crime happened. So what we will do is we make an illustration, right? So illustrators are there, graphics. So we try to make it visually attractive. Unlike a Hindu, for example, it's a serious paper, but it's not visually attractive, right? So constantly we try to do that. Then what happened? Not only visually, we wanted to get video in. Now, how you get a video into the newspaper? So sometime back, we had that Alive app. It was called Alive, A-L-I-V-E. So you just scan it and that picture will become video. There's a picture at the app. So you have to download that app. Once you have that app, you put that thing on the picture, you focus on that picture, it will become video. Right? Same HT has started recently. If you say Hindustan Times, they have started that QR code. In certain stories, they're giving the QR code. So you scan that, you get video, you get more pictures, right? Because you don't have so much of space to carry maybe 10 pictures. So you have given the QR code, and everybody has a smartphone these days, so especially your reader, English reader. So he scans the QR code and he gets maybe 10 pictures or maybe video. So you're making your newspaper be visually attractive more and more, right? So then we're trying to engage. How we are trying to engage? These are, of course, slight digression. Like we are giving scholarships to students. Okay. We do campaign stories like organ donation and all that. Right. Then the other thing that we have started. So maybe as a reporter, you'll also be asked to do certain stories. You have to get in touch with people. Like in the COVID situation, what happened? So as I said, customized content. So you have to give customized content. So what we realized during the COVID time, that there are a lot of mental health issues, a lot of people with mental health issues. It is triggered by the COVID, lockdown, COVID, job loss. Their kids are unable to go to school, colleges, they're sitting at home. It is leading to mental health issues, right? So we started a section, weekly section called Talk It Out. So you have your problems, you give it, and our experts will answer that. So these are things we're trying to, this is called customized content, right? So these are the innovations that we did at our level. Now I'll come to the third part. Prepare your questions, we can answer it later. So these are innovations I talked about at the organization level. Now I'm coming to the crux actually. I've talked about how the print media is changing because the media space is changing. So unless you know how the print media is changing, if you're thinking of a career in print media, it'll be futile. Because I must know the environment in which I'll be working. I want to be a media professional. I must know what the media environment is like, what the media landscape is like, right? That's why I talked you through the changing face of the media, how media has changed. If you want to be in the media, you must track these trends, that your stories have to be interactive, your stories have to be visually attractive, what you write. That's why pehle aaya tha blog, then came vlog, video blog, because people realized you write a blog, only text is not interesting. So then people started giving pictures in their blogs. So then people went a step forward. Then they started doing video logs, blogs, vlogs. So that's why. So your things will change. So this is the last part of the thing. And after that, I'm going to take questions. I've got, I think, 15 minutes left. So I talk about innovations at your level, versatility. Now I call it, we are in a multiplexed society. Look at it in a complex society. Clarity in a complex world. The world is complex. I would say we live in a multiplexed society. In the sense, in a multiplexed world. That's why media also, if you see, we talk about multimedia platforms. एक platform से काम नहीं चलेगा. You have to have multiple platforms. You will not only read a newspaper, you will also go to the digital platform, you will also watch TV, maybe you will also listen to radio, and so you will use all the platforms, right, as a reader. Likewise, as media platforms themselves, the owners also have known that only one platform will not do. As I said, Times of India has also its website, timesofIndia.com. Without that, you cannot do. If I just say that I will only bring out the newspaper the next day at 6 o'clock in the morning, it will not do. I have to constantly bombard my reader with information from Times of India. And that I do with the digital platform, right? That I do with the social media platforms. And sometimes what happens is in a big organization like Times of India, you have their own television channels as well, like Times Now, like whatever, Mirror Now, whatever. So you have organizations who have television channels, we have magazines, you have newspapers, you have Radio Mirchi, or whatever. So you have all the media platforms, right? So this is called the multimedia thing. So there, what is your requirement? Now, days are ahead when, that's why I'm telling you people to be prepared for it, because when we started, when we joined the profession, maybe 25, 30 years back, so we could segregate. Print was print, TV was TV, there was no digital that time at all. I'm talking about 1990. But today what has happened is, when you are coming into a mix of everything, right? So when you're trying to join the print media, you have to be also prepared for the digital platforms. And that is why when you are learning, your learning skills have to expand. Like, for example, storytelling. The print earlier had a different style of storytelling. Radio has a different style of storytelling. Television has a different style of storytelling, right? The same story is written differently for television because it's a visual medium, audio visual medium. The same story is differently written for a newspaper. It is written differently for a magazine, right? But today so there are different modes of storytelling, right? But today when you join print, you have to learn all the modes of storytelling. You must know how a particular story can be written for a newspaper and also for a television channel and also for the digital platform, right? This is called transmedia narrative. Transmedia narrative is storytelling across media platforms with the help of digital technology. So you must know the transmedia narrative. Like future mein kya hoga? Even now it happens. Our reporters have to give chats for Times Now. Suppose I'm an expert on foreign affairs. Times Now is doing a story on India-Pakistan relations. So our foreign affairs expert gives a chat on that, right? So our health expert will give a chat on maybe something happening on COVID or something related to health. So our health expert is giving a chat on Times Now channel. Our reporters are not only filing for Times of India, their stories are also going to the digital platform, right? So you must know, so you have to have a mix. Your technique, storytelling technique has to have a mix. This is because of the convergence culture, the convergence of media platforms. Henry Jenkins had talked about it, right? Then comes, of course, news curation. Sometimes you have to curate news. Now, there's difference from news aggregation and news creation. I don't know whether you know the difference. And news aggregation is आपने news दिया, अपने platform में लगा दिया, अलग-अलग news, अलग-अलग जगह से. But you are quoting them, right? Like Google used to do. Google has Times of India का भी news है, HT का भी है, whatever. But news curation is you're taking news from others, and same news you are putting it together, taking the best elements, and you are making one report out of it. You are quoting them, of course. So you are making one report out of them. That's called news curation. You are taking from various sources. Even papers are carrying publishing stories that I was talking about cross-media presentation. So cross-media presentation and news curation are very related. So if you see, Times also has a curator page. The curator page, actually, if you see weekly, it comes once. It takes the best articles from various publications across the world. It could be New York Times, it could be Washington Times, the Washington Post, it could be Guardian. So they take the best stories and put them in one page. So you get to know the best of stories, from the best stories. So somebody does the selection, of course, there. So that's also part of it. The page itself is called curator, Times curator, right? So curation and all that. So you have to, so ultimately what happens is, what I would like to say is, you have two things you have to do. One is you have to reinvent yourself. You have to reinvent yourself as a storyteller. So that you must know how to write for the digital platform, how to write for the TV, and how to write for the print media, right? So you, as a storyteller, because see, basically, if you're joining the profession, you're joining is as for what? You want to be basically a storyteller, right? So when you are a storyteller, so you must master that craft, right? So there you have to master the craft of the various platforms. The other part is you also have to simultaneously develop news literacy, because if you're talking about a career in print, now print, as I said, is more reliable, is more authentic. Why? Because in the digital platform you can change. मैंने आज अभी लिखा, मैंने वाइप ऑफ कर दिया, डिलीट मार दिया. प्रिंट में डिलीट बटन नहीं है. अखबार में once it is published in the newspaper, एक बार छप गई तो छप गई for all times, right? टीवी में आप टिकर में कुछ दिखा देते हो, पर इट्स एन इंस्टेंट मीडियम. आपने टिकर में कुछ दिखाया, वो गलत इंफॉर्मेशन है, आपने चेंज कर दिया इंफॉर्मेशन. बट अखबार में एक बार छप गई तो छप गई बॉस. वो अखबार बाहर निकल गई, कहते हैं ना, मुंह से बात निकल गई तो निकल गई. You can't take it back. Just like that, once the newspaper publishes something and it goes out to the readers, you can't change it, you can't recall it. In digital you can. Even in TV you can, because TV आपको याद ही नहीं होगा कल उसने क्या दिखाया था, right? But अखबार is for the library, right? So you have to be far more responsible. So as a newspaper journalist, if you're thinking of a career in print, you have to be far more responsible. मैं तो ऐसा कह रहा हूँ कि journalism तो वैसे भी, but it's not that a television journalist is not supposed to be responsible. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if you're in print, your responsibility is much more. You have to be 100% sure that what you are writing is correct information, including the spelling, everything. You cannot change. टीवी में सब कुछ स्पेलिंग गलत है, चेंज हो गया, लेकिन अखबार में नहीं हो सकता. So for that, to realize that you don't get carried away by fake news, is you have to develop news literacies to carry. It is different from normal literacy. There's something called news literacy, which started about 10 years back in the US at the Stony Brook University. So news literacy is the ability to distinguish journalistic information from any other information. It is also the ability to distinguish bias, opinion in any information. The ability to detect, I would say, the ability to detect bias. आपको ये होनी चाहिए. You should not get carried away. कि आया आपके WhatsApp में आपने छाप दिया, किसने बोला आपने छाप दिया, और some celebrities said, as I said, celebrity that role of influences. किसी celebrity ने बोला और आपने blindly छाप दिया अपने अखबार में कि this is Okay, Amazon forest provide 70% of world's oxygen just because French President Macron said this. No, you have to cross-check. You have to verify. That is very, very critical, right? So you cannot trust anything. So as a print journalist, I would say print journalists are far more skeptical. वो जल्दी विश्वास नहीं करेंगे कोई चीज. They will not get carried away, right? So when you're thinking of two, three things, if you're thinking of a career in print, I would say, don't think about a career in print. When you think of a career in print, don't think print only. Think that print means you will also have to do things which are required in the digital platform. You might have to do also things which will be required. Maybe suppose if your organization has a television channel, you'll have to do that. Radio may be private में news नहीं है, but if it comes, maybe 5 years down the line, it might be allowed. So then you'll have Radio Mirchi have, along with RJs, will also have news readers, right? There'll be people who will be producing news, like All India Radio. Like I was part of All India Radio. Now news is only with All India Radio, with the government, with AIR. But maybe 5 years down the line, 4 years down the line, private channels, there has been talk for long going on that private channels should be allowed news. अभी भी वो देते हैं, by the way. वो indirectly आप देखोगे, they'll give you a lot of news. Lot of news in the garb of the RJs are they cleverly put it. During their conversation, they will talk about it. Right. So these are the things. At the end, I can only say that always remember, content is king. Look कहते हैं ना, and you have to be the king of content because the storytellers rule the world. You have to be at the end a good storyteller. A storyteller, you will never be a good storyteller unless you listen or read to good stories. In the sense that that's why I always tell my students, just looking at your WhatsApp and getting the information, looking at your app, mobile app, news app, getting the information is not enough. You must read the newspaper to see how that information has been presented in print. You must see a television channel to see how the story has been presented. By television channel story, by TV story, I don't mean studio discussions. That's not a television story. A television story is how a visual, audio-visual story is told. You must know that, right? In the digital platform, you log on to various things and see. You multi-source your information. Multi-source that is also very important for news literacy. Also, multi-sourcing. Don't believe whatever is there in one print, in one platform, right? You must multi-source your information. For example, if you are as a reporter, if you are writing something, आप multi-source करते हो ना, आप cross-check करते हो. So you talk to 2-3 people, not one person, unless the person is of course of a very high level. Like you're talking to the national security advisor, that's different. You need not verify. But otherwise, you talk to 1 or 2 more people to verify. So that is very important. So I would say that that's why when Bhavana ji and we were discussing the topic, so she only suggested this. I said yes, because when I was talking about how in the print platform, you have to don't just because you are thinking of a career in print, it's not about thinking only print. You have to think of the whole gamut of the media platforms. Because you'll be maybe writing a post on your Facebook. You'll be writing Instagram. You'll be writing on Twitter. You'll be writing on. So there are ways how to make yourself more attractive. How you make your writing more attractive on various platforms. Right. I think I'm almost an hour now. And I have to take the questions. I have covered by and large, so I have to hurry through. I could have gone on and on. In fact, changing face of media is a very, very broad topic. So there are various aspects of media, digital platform. Individually, you check what is digital platform, what is TV platform, what is TV, what is print. So it's a very hard. So I tried to squeeze everything in today, and the challenges for the print innovation. Because print constantly you have to innovate, But print is the biggest challenge for print. But print, let me tell you, is not dead. If people think that print be dead, will be dead, death of newspapers, I don't think so. Because in India, first of all, there is a huge craze. We are a news crazy country. And secondly, though modern generation is not so much into newspapers, but newspapers will get, I'm very sure that people will get fed up with this fake news syndrome one day. And more and more, they will start relying on newspapers. Anyway, thank you so much, because on the virtual platform, it is very difficult to continue for so long because you will get impatient otherwise. Thank you so much, and I'm ready to take questions.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. So my first question is that it's not a question, it's a bit of a query. So you said TOI is putting the email address rather than just a name. So I was just curious, how often do you get the feedback from the readers?
The reader will write to the reporter on that email. If you don't have the email, how do you write?
No, so how often do you get the feedback?
We get lots of it. Lots of it. The reporters get lots of stories, especially once you make a mistake, then the readers will rip you apart. They will write to you and they will say that. So the reporters get lots of mails, which is very important. And because initially earlier times, you had only one way to interact with the editor of the newspaper, and that was the letters to the editor. So as a child, I used to also write. As a student, I used to also write a lot of letters to the editor. And used to get published also, Statesman and all that. But today, if you see, letters to the editor column is very, very limited. One or two letters they publish. In fact, in some papers, they have removed that letters to the editor because there's no space. So since we decided that there is no letters to the editor, like Indian Express has it, but Times of India we have removed because it occupies space and you can only publish 2. Previously, those to publish 3, 4. So then we decided that it's better to give the email ID. So initially, newspapers started giving email ID for the columns. That started with Hindustan Times and Times of India both. So in the column, if you see edit page day, say it was Rajdeep Sardesai or somebody writes something, so email ID is given. Then we are the first paper who started giving the email ID as a byline, so that you can constantly engage the writer. Like on the digital platform, you want to engage the writer, no? Like in the Facebook, you want to engage with the post, or with the writer of the particular post. So you want to constantly interact. So that's why the reader should be able to interact with the writer. That was the whole idea, and we get a lot of it.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, my next question regarding the career in print media. So, sir, does it help to have a knowledge of regional language like Punjabi, Marathi, Gujarati in getting a job in print media?
Very good question. It of course helps. The more languages you know, the better it is. At 2 levels, it helps. Suppose you are at the national level. Like for example, it has helped me because I know Hindi, Bengali, and Odia. So English, Hindi, Bengali, 3 regional languages I know. So it helps me because suppose Times of India or by my organization, something big has happened in Odisha and they want to send me from Delhi. So unless I know the local language, I'll not be able to report. Right? So if I know Odia, so they will prefer me to any other reporter who does not know Odia. For something big happens, if something big happens in Odisha, right? Something big happens in Punjab. If I don't know Punjabi, then they will not send me. Right? So if you know Punjabi, they will prefer you because you know the language. Apart from the English, you also know Punjabi. You know Hindi, right? One. So it helps there, even in the national platform. And the second is, there is also huge. See, the point is news is also getting democratized. So there is there is localization of news. So there are n number of newspapers which are coming at the local level. So there can be a newspaper which is based in Chandigarh, Punjab, either Punjabi or English, either way. So if you are working for a newspaper in Chandigarh, you have to know the language, right? It's like an IS officer. If I get a particular state cadre, if I'm IS, I might be from Bihar, but if as an IS officer, I get Karnataka as my state cadre, I have to learn Kannada, right? So exactly like that. So if you are posted as a newspaper editor or reporter in Chandigarh, whether it's an English newspaper or a Punjabi, it does not matter. But the point is, if you know the language, it'll be easier for you and it'll help you. So of course, I would say the more languages you know, especially speaking, the better it is.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So, sir, my next question is, and it could be in mind of many journalism students, so which medium has more job opportunity? Is it a TV media or when you talk about the print media?
Okay. See, the point is, as I said, that's why towards the end I said, that it's very difficult to have data. Like print employs a huge number of people, of course, because print has still, I would say, there are lot many publications, 1 lakh publications are India, magazines, periodicals, and newspapers at various levels, not only Delhi, but at regional levels and all that stuff. And if you add to that language newspapers, you'll have much more. So print is there, right? TV that way is a little more limited because the number of channels are not as many as print, right? Then you have, of course, the digital platform, which is a huge employer now. But that's what I'm saying, that to increase your employability and not only to increase your own employability, but also even if you are joining the print, your own organization will expect you to know about the digital platform. So it is much better to prepare for all the platforms, because even while working for print, as I said at the end of my lecture, while working for print, you will be made to also work for the digital platform. Like Times of India, suppose, for example, something big is happening somewhere. Now, why should I send 2 reporters there? One for Times of India, one for Times Now, and one for digital timesofindia.com. No, I will send 1 reporter. Why should I send 3 reporters? I will send 1 reporter who will write for Times of India, who will write for timesofindia.com, who will also report for Times Now channel, right? See, when I started, let me tell you, because gradually what will happen is, so multitasking is the key. And it is bound to happen. Like today, people are doing what? People are not only reporting, they are also editing their own stories. They are also their own camera persons. Aajkal, pehle kya hota tha? Camera persons, like for example, I was telling somebody the other day, like when we started in 90s, 95, when news channels came to India, initially what happened? For example, even when I went out to report initially for a television channel, generally I've reported very sparingly, but whenever I've reported, so we used to have 3 people, 1 cameraman, 1 reporter, 1 cameraman, and 1 person to hold the tripod, because the tripod used to be very big, because the cameras those days used to be very big. Uske baad kya hua? Cameras became very small, where technology developed. So then the tripod also became very small. So then you chucked out the tripod guy. You don't need him. There are only reporter and cameraman, and reporter who used to hold the tripod. So when I went out later on, I had to hold the tripod. Cameraman is busy shooting, and I'm holding the tripod. He's shooting, and then I'm giving chats or whatever, right? So then now what will happen? In future, let me tell you, it will be difficult for cameramen to have their jobs only as cameramen. Because what will happen? The reporter, the cameras, now mobiles are shooting. They're shooting your pictures through mobile phones. So you don't need a cameraman. NDTV has a bulletin which is shot only on the mobile phone, right? So then you don't need a cameraman. So reporter is the cameraman. So you are, along with the reporting skills, you also have to have cameraman skills, right? And editing, you are also editing on the mobile phone. There's a software, so you edit. So your story is ready. You just send it to your channel puts it on air. So that's what I'm saying. So multitasking will be important. So you'll be doing everything, like for a newspaper also. Maybe you have to also learn to take good pictures. So you're taking good selfies, fine enough, but also please learn to take good pictures, picture angles, because it will go to help you. Because days are ahead, because you guys are about to begin your career. So 30, 35 years left, right? So kitne sari changes ho jayenge. So days are ahead, उसके बाद कैमरामैन की नौकरी नहीं रहेगी. कैमरामैन का काम रहेगा, लेकिन नौकरी नहीं रहेगी अलग से. That's what I mean. So you are a reporter, so they'll say you will also take the pictures. Why should I sit a cameraman separately? Tell me. So that by then Samsung or Apple will come up with maybe mobile phone cameras, which are very, very powerful. Already, I think Samsung, I was looking at a mobile phone somebody else has bought. I cannot afford it, 1 lakh rupees. The mobile phone is the camera is so powerful. It's like a DSLR, right? So then with that kind of camera, mobile phone, you don't need a cameraman. So that's what I'm saying. The key is okay, you're thinking of print, you have to be primarily in print, fine. But then you also have to learn the other task. Like as a print reporter, you also have to learn how to take pictures. Because 5 years down the line, they may not send a camera person with you. वो बोलेंगे अयोध्या में राम टेम्पल का शिलान्यास हो रहा है, so you are going as a reporter. So you also take the pictures and send it. I'll not send a cameraman separately. Okay. Next question.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, so in print media, writing skill is the key. So, so as a student, how can we enhance our writing skill? And is there any difference between writing for newspaper and writing for magazines?
That's why exactly I said, writing see the main thing is writing. And writing is not only about print. Digital में तो writing है. हर मीडियम में writing है. टेलीविजन में भी writing है. It's an audio visual medium. लेकिन जो audio आप सुनते हो, जो story का जो voice over सुनते हो, somebody has written that script. Like picture में somebody has written the story ना, वो तो बाद में dialogue बन जाता है. Somebody is delivering, it becomes audio. But the story has been written by somebody, right? So exactly like that in TV also, somebody has written that script. As somebody does the voiceover, so it becomes audio. So your script becomes audio in TV. And of course, your visuals are there. So it's audio visual, right? But otherwise, in digital also, you have to know writing. In print. Now, so writing skills. Now, you said two things. One, print or magazine. Of course, correct. There's a difference in the storytelling. That's what I said. There are different types of storytelling depending on the platform you are in. If you're in TV, there's a certain style of storytelling. If you're in print paper, there's a certain style of storytelling. If you're in an agency, there's a certain style of storytelling. If you're in a news magazine, there's a certain, because magazine may suppose they have to write something. Now, something which has happened this abhi, newspaper में कल छप गई, आज भी घटना, कल newspaper में छप गई, magazine आएगी 5 दिन बाद. It's a weekly magazine. Magazine goes to press 5 days later. So obviously 5 days later, if I write the same thing, it will be boring. Why should the reader read it? Because he has already read it in the newspapers. He has already read it in the, seen it on television channels. So when I'm writing for magazines, obviously it's a different ballgame. Then I'm writing more into depth. It is more into analysis. So magazine writing is more into analysis. Right? अगर सिर्फ मैं factual दूंगा, तो factual तो लोगों को मालूम है that they read the same day on Twitter and the next day in the newspapers. So 5 days later when the magazine comes or a week later, why should they read it? So magazine writing is, so that's a different thing altogether. It cannot, that's a different those classes to teach writing skills. But yes, agency में अलग है. Right? जैसे मैं आपको example देता हूँ. एक bomb blast हुआ, suppose, I'm just saying, God forbid, bomb blast हुआ, 20 people were killed and 30 injured in 2 bomb explosions in Delhi, Sarojini Nagar. I'm just giving an example. अब अगर आप agency में हो, तो आप लिखोगे कि 20 people are killed and 30 injured when 2 bombs exploded in busy Sarojini Nagar market in South Delhi on Tuesday morning, right? So you try to get 5 W's and 1 H or whatever, right? But in TV, what will you do? In TV, I'll put it differently because TV is an audio medium, audio visual. TV में अगर हम ऐसे बोलेंगे 20 people are killed, हम इसको बाद में बोलेंगे. TV में I'll say there are strikes, Delhi again. So the moment I say terror strikes Delhi again, people will get alerted, right? And then I say 20 people are killed, 30 injured in 2 bomb explosions in South Delhi, whatever. So then I will break the sentences, bring it differently. So the same story, I'm bringing it differently. Times of India tomorrow, maybe we'll start very differently. We'll start maybe with a very dramatic start. Right? Maybe Times of India will start with one eyewitness and how it happened. Let's say when Anup Kumar was about to open his shop at 9 o'clock in the morning in Sarojini Nagar, he heard a huge explosion. And then I will start because I know that 20 people killed. I'll put it in the headline, of course, 20 killed and 30 injured. But the story I will start very differently because I know that bulk of it is known by people. Right? The Times of India next day will start it very differently. So there are different ways of storytelling, of course. That's why you have to, the only way to learn good storytelling is to read. That's why I'm saying, please do not just rely on your WhatsApp, on your mobile app for news. Read newspapers, read some magazines, go onto the digital platform, see how stories are being written. आप जितना देखोगे, see good writing, remember, good writing comes from good reading. जब तक आप अच्छी पढ़ोगे नहीं, ठीक से पढ़ोगे नहीं, वो राइटिंग नहीं आएगी. आप 10 किताबें पढ़ोगे, 10 पेपर पढ़ोगे, I'm just saying, 10 तरह की डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म में देखोगे कैसे, सिर्फ वीडियो में अगर देखोगे तो, and then when you are reading something, please read in the manner, आपका अप्रोच अलग होगा. जैसे सपोज आपके पेरेंट्स जब अखबार पढ़ते हैं, तो वो पढ़ते हैं फॉर इंफॉर्मेशन, ठीक है, लेकिन आप जब अखबार पढ़ोगे as an aspiring journalist, your approach will be different. Your approach will be कि वो information को कैसे present कर रहे हैं, कौन सा word कहाँ दे रहे हैं, how the first paragraph is flowing into the second, into the third. So your approach of reading newspapers or reading news will be different. That is where you learn कि मैं कैसे how the information is being presented. जैसे आप फिल्म देखने जाते हो, जब मैं फिल्म देखने जाता हूँ तो मैं सिर्फ फिल्म देखता हूँ, अच्छा लगा चला है, लेकिन कोई अगर फिल्म मेकर फिल्म देखने जाता है किसी और का, तो वो फिर अलग एंगल से देखता है. वो देखता है कि कहाँ पर डायरेक्शन कैसा हुआ है, ठीक है गलत है, स्क्रीन प्ले कैसा है, फोटोग्राफी की एंगल कैसी है, सही है, यहाँ ऐसा हो सकता है, this could have been better here, this could have. So he is looking at the film very differently. So your approach should be like that. When you are reading something, your approach should be like that. कि न्यूज प्रेजेंटेशन कैसा है, कहाँ it can be better, जहाँ अच्छा है वहाँ आप नकल करो कि हाँ भाई ये बड़ा how nicely written, right? Okay. Anyway,
my co-moderator Mansi would also like to ask you some questions.
Okay. Yeah, Mansi.
So my first question is that
Mansi, आपकी voice बहुत कम आ रही है, audio बहुत कम है.
am I audible now?
No, it's fine.
So my first question is that people use various slangs nowadays. So is this hampering their ability to write?
क्या people are?
So people use various slangs nowadays like YOLO and FOMO. So is this hampering their ability to write?
No. Particularly in print and even in the journalism, you cannot write any those kind of language. See, writing is for journalism. The best writing is try to understand what I mean. You have to be formally informal and informally formal. Right? So you have to be informal also. You can't be too formal. Then there will be distance. You have to be formally informal and informally formal. Like you can't be too formal. Too formal hoge to you'll make a distance between you and your viewer or your reader. But at the same time, you can't be too informal either. Right? So that is the balance that you have to strike. So you can't use that language. No, you have to have, you have to be conversational, but conversational in a manner that you are like the way you converse with your parents and not with your bosom friend. Like you are conversational, but at the same time, you're not using any slangs, you're not using any that kind of language. Right? So idea is that even print is now today using conversational language. So that, you know, it is more, for the viewer, reader, it is more easy. So their print maybe article, they're using short sentences, not very long sentences, because people don't like. And write very simple, that KISS formula. That KISS formula is keep it simple and short. Right? So your sentences should be short, not too long, and it should be simple. Don't use any tough words. Don't use any those kind of things which the reader will get put off. Right. So, right, I have realized this, that simple writing is the most complex thing, is the most difficult thing actually. People can't write just plain and simple. Don't get complicated in your writing because you are a mass medium. You are trying to communicate to the masses. Right? So a 14-year-old should also be able to understand what you are writing and an 80-year-old. Right? Yeah, please. Anybody else? I think I've answered your question.
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Yeah, please.
Sir, like I was reading a lot of reports regarding the impact of the COVID on the print media. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, COVID yes, did have an impact.
Yeah.
Initially, yes. And I briefly touched upon it. Like COVID, what happened was a lot of people shifted completely to digital platform, whose newspapers are not being distributed at all. So completely people were onto the digital platform. So our circulation came down and all that. And our ads came down. And when our ads came down, circulation came down, obviously our content came down. The number of pages are less. So, but we innovated. We constantly innovated. Like for us, work from home is an alien concept. But our newspaper did not stop for a single day. We came out every day and things have changed because we have found out ways how to go about it. And I'm telling you, COVID has changed the way reporting will be done later on also. Maybe in future, what will happen is for a television channel, if you have a situation, COVID-like situation like this, where it is dangerous to go to a crowd, so you might send a drone to capture the images. Like you are using drones today to capture marriage functions and all that stuff. Maybe tomorrow, the television channels will use drones to capture pictures of migrant laborers, the exodus of migrant laborers that we saw. Right? Maybe in future, the reporters will also do something like that. I mean, you might use artificial intelligence. So things are changing. But yes, print, it had an impact on print. It will take some time. Print has to innovate. That's why I said that print has to ultimately, even before COVID, we started a long time before COVID. COVID was a different thing altogether. Nobody expected. But we realized that unless print integrates with the digital platform, it will be difficult to carry on. Because digital platform is here to stay. And it's a 24/7 platform. And this is something what is known as the blue media syndrome. Now, I don't know whether you guys have heard about it. You know yellow journalism, but it's something called blue journalism.
Yeah.
Blue media, which is that 24/7 we are being battered by information. From 6, 7 in the morning when we get up till 12 at night when you hit the bed. So you are constantly on some media platform or the other, right? You are constantly bombarded by information. So media has an overarching, has a very, what should I say? It's constantly on your mind. It's playing on your mind, either through your email or through your Facebook or through your Twitter or through your newspaper or television channel or whatever it is. You are with one media platform or the other. Either you are watching news or you are watching Netflix.
Yes.
Or you are watching Amazon Prime, whatever it is. So media, of course, includes everything. So in this 24/7 thing, so how do you keep print relevant?
Yes.
That's why I thought, because print is one time, no? It comes out at one point. Print is not 24/7. It can't be 24/7. So the challenge was how to make print 24/7. So we are precisely doing that by integrating with the digital platform. So that the print Times of India is there. I mean, you are logging into timesofIndia.com. So the fact that you are logging into timesofIndia.com, you will also take the newspaper the next day. So your Times of India thing is there in your mind all the time.
Yes.
I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, definitely. So one more question I just want to ask. So you said that you have been associated with All India Radio as well, and now you have been you are working with the Times of India. So, for example, when we talk about Times of India, there is we have when we write news, there is a space constraint. But when we talk about radio as a medium, so there is we have to make a package of you say 15 minutes or 10 minutes. So what is the basic difference while reporting for the news from on both the platforms?
Good question. I am actually changing face of media. I had limited time, so I could not cover as much, but very good question. It's about people don't realize this. Of course, there are space constraints. And what you are saying, I constantly tell my reporters this. 2, 3 things we must understand. Newspapers have space constraints because you know that, you've got this much space, rest is ad or whatever, and the other space. So you know exactly how much to write. So there are huge space constraints. Second is radio again has space constraints because you have got a 10-minute bulletin. Now in 10-minute bulletin, you know that so much of news has to be covered, right? So you can't expand that, right? A 10-minute bulletin is a 10-minute bulletin, right? Even in TV, it is exactly like that. So you have space constraints in the sense you have a 1-hour bulletin, you have a 1-hour bulletin, it can't be stretched. But after 1 hour, the next bulletin starts, right? So in all the three, the space constraint is there, right? It's a digital platform where the space constraint is not there, right? So digital platform में space constraint इसलिए नहीं है कि it is you can be on the platform for half an hour, you can be on the platform for 1 hour. There's no restriction, right? The platform will not vanish. A bulletin will finish, but a platform, if I'm logged on to a platform, will remain. So people have this misconception, since the digital platform has unlimited space, so you can write as much. Now I have a running debate with all my senior reporters. Senior reporters meaning reporters who are maybe as old as me. I put in 25, 30 years. There are many who say, they think when we edit their stories, as I said, so some of the stories go to the paper, and the story also goes to the digital platform, right? As I said, you have to, as a print, you have to think of digital also. So they think when I cut them out, suppose they have written 600 words, and I cut them out to 350. So they think, sir, उसको थोड़ा जाने देते हैं, digital में तो सारा छिप जाता है, digital में तो space की कमी नहीं है. But they don't realize digital does not have physical space constraints. But people do not want to read more than 350 words, 350 words on the digital platform. Because people do not have the patience. आप देखोगे digital platform में people don't read in between the lines. People skim. आप देखोगे एक बार आप जैसे अखबार पढ़ते हो ना या किताब पढ़ते हो word per word. आप digital platform में आप देखोगे आप खुद भी you don't read word per word. You jump. That's why you get keywords there, right? The whole idea of getting keywords is so to stop the reader, to catch the reader's attention, right? So because your reader jumps, skimming. So you skim from one paragraph to another. That's why you change the colors, whatever. So digital में भी देखा गया है कि beyond 350 words, people do not have the patience to read. So what they do is, so if you have more information, so instead of 600 words, one story, you write 2 stories of 300 words each.
Yes.
So that's why आप देखोगे digital में क्या होता है, आप एक story छपती है, then there are related stories करके रहता है, related links. So same story का related stories. Why? Because the story has been split. Because I know that if I one story I give 600 words, people will not have the patience. So it's better to have 2 stories of 300 words each. So that is the art of storytelling. It will change depending on the platform. So AIR also, you have since an audio medium, you know how to write. It will not be writing long sentences and all that because it's only the audio. People are only hearing you. So you must remember that when I'm writing for radio, what I'm writing, it should be very, very simple. That people should be able to understand at one go. Because you get only one opportunity to be understood.
Yes.
In print, what happens? I can go back. मुझे एक sentence समझ में नहीं आया, I can go back and read it again. लेकिन टीवी और रेडियो में ये पॉसिबल नहीं है. मैंने मिस हो गया तो मिस हो गया. Right? I can't say come again. So what? No. The newsreader is reading. अब मिस कर गया तो मिस कर गया. So I should be able to be understood in one attempt. So that is the challenge for TV and radio, which is not there in print. But print, maybe I would still say simple writing has no substitute. People will like it more. Yes, please.
Yeah. So my last question to you is, sir, how to make an story impactful? Like including 5 Ws and 1 H is a good formula. But how to make it some more impactful so that it should attract readers? Like my students wants to know about it. How's the role of the vocabulary? Is it or the 5 Ws and 1 H is enough?
Okay, very good question again.
Thank you, sir.
This is a very good question.
Thank you, sir.
So 5 Ws, 1 H आपने कहा. See, I always tell my students, I add to that SW, so what?
Okay.
1 SW, so what? That is the impact of your story. In the sense, my story should have the so what factor so that it has an impact on the reader. How does it matter to me? Right? I will give you examples here. So unless you give that story that spin, that particular orientation, your reader will not be interested. How does it affect me? एक तो होता है news you can use, right? So the reader should be able to use your information. News का एक definition ये भी है कि the news is such, you should write news is such which empowers your readers to take informed decisions.
Yes.
That is very important. See, it should empower the reader to take informed decisions. See, so that's a very long debate. I will come to that later if some opportunity comes. So what is the so what factor? So आपने 5 W's 1H तो दे दिया. So what? That is the impact. They say, suppose RBI ने rate of interest बढ़ाए, right? 1%. Now, if you write कि RBI today increase the rate of interest by 1% and all that, it will not be interesting to the reader. आपने तो 5 W's 1H लिख रहे हो कि RBI ने ये किया, कहाँ किया, कब किया, कितना किया, जो भी है. But the question is, it will not be interesting. So to make it interesting, so what? I will say that from next month, EMIs on your home loans, on your car loans are going to go up.
Yes.
And then I will say RBI, that is because RBI has increased the rate of interest. The moment I say that impact of EMI on your home loans or for next month, your EMI on your car loans and home loans will go up, that's the so what factor I'm talking about. See, Delhi mein rape case, Nirbhaya happened. Now, why did it become a big news? So you have to give it a orientation. It's not about one. It's the same rape happened in somewhere else, in some remote corner. It would not have been such big news. Why it was in Delhi? Because the impact. The impact is that how women are unsafe in the national capital. So I will try to, if my story is there, if I do a story on that, I will not only talk about the incident, what happened, 5Ws 1H, I'll talk about how women are unsafe even in the national capital. And then I'll talk about the data that last 6 months this happened, or last 7 months this is what happened. And this is a country average, and this is a Delhi average, which is more than the country average, whatever. So I'll try to prove my story. So that's how I will get my impact in. So the so what factor is very important. The wow factor, why should I read the story?
Yes.
I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, sir, you have answered it in a very beautiful way. And sir, thank you so much. I would like to invite Bhavna ma'am to say something. Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, it was indeed a very interesting session, sir. Trust me, knowledgeable.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for sparing time for all of us, and we will be definitely taking your inputs in coming future also.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bhavnaji. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I hope the students enjoyed it, and I hope the students take away something out of it.
We have a huge list of questions, so I'll try to send it through mail.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.